Hello, everybody. Welcome to Whisked, stirring up conversations in the shared kitchen industry. This is our monthly series where we sit down with the operators, partners, and food system leaders shaping the shared kitchen world. I'm Tyler, Director of Special Projects at the Food Corridor, the leading management software for shared kitchens. Through our department, Kitchen EDU, we support shared kitchens with tools, education, and resources to help them operate sustainably and grow with intention. Each month, we're digging into real conversations about what's working, what's challenging, and what shared kitchen operators need to know to better support the food businesses they serve. Today, I'm so excited to be joined by Ederique, Chef Goudia. Chef E brings together deep passion for food, community, and equity as a chef and business leader rooted in Detroit, Michigan. With over 25 years' experience, she has dedicated her career to supporting under resourced food entrepreneurs and advocating sustainable, inclusive approaches to entrepreneurship and community building. As founder of In the Business of Food and manager of the Shed 5 Incubator Kitchen at Eastern Market, Chef E provides hands on coaching and resources that help emerging food businesses grow. Thank you again for joining us today, Chef E.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up doing this work in Detroit?
Absolutely. So I thank you for the great introduction, by the way. I am from South Louisiana. So born and raised in Louisiana. And, when you're in high school and you're trying to figure out what do I want to be when I grow up, right? Because of course that's going to shape what you major in, where you go to school, like all that stuff. And I originally wanted to be a therapist. I wanted to get my degree in psychology. I wanted to be a therapist. I wanted to help people in that way. And, in South Louisiana, everybody cooks. And I love to cook. I would sit up and I would watch cooking shows while all the other kids were outside. And I'm about to tell my age because I was watching like Yan Can Cook, like Julia Child. In South Louisiana was Justin Wilson.
Mhm.
And so I'm definitely telling my age by some of the shows that I was watching when I was younger. But I loved food and loved cooking. I love experimenting in the kitchen. But it was like everybody cooks. Again, this is South Louisiana. So, not just my mom, my dad, my grandparents. My grandfather was a cook in World War II. It was just something that you did. And so it wasn't something that I ever considered as a career because this is just what everyone does.
Mhm.
And so it wasn't until in high school, I think it was my junior year, that we actually had a chef come and actually make lunch for the whole school, Chef John Foss. And
Wow.
that it was one of those like, wait, I can do this for a career. Like I can make money doing this. This isn't just like something domestic that everybody does. And so it was at that point when, thinking about again what I want to be when I grow up. And I just knew I did not want to do anything that I hated or that was going to I was going to hate going to work every day. And so when I realized that was something that I could have as a career, I was like, oh, then I think that's what I want to do. I want to be a chef and I want to own my own restaurant. And so thinking about that, owning my own restaurant, I thought, well, I'm gonna need to know how to run a business. Like cooking that's one thing, but then actually having a business is another. And so I decided to go to school to get my degree in business management, and with a focus on entrepreneurship, because I'm like that's really important. And so that's how I ended up in Michigan. I went to college in Louisiana, and then moved up to Michigan immediately after college, and I started managing restaurants and food service operations and went through. I mean, I was restaurant manager. I worked for a food service management company. I worked for a broadline distributor. Still with this idea of one day I'm gonna own my own restaurant. But I learned a lot about how to manage a business, start a business, grow a business throughout that time. And so when I, kind of left corporate and started to work more in community is when I came across and started being in community with people that were starting food businesses or had food businesses, but did not have that business side. They had a
Mhm.
great product. They had great ideas, tasty food, but just didn't have that business experience, which was my area of expertise. And so I was like, well, maybe some of that, all of my experiences can help other people to make sure that they have a strong foundation for their business, instead of just again being able to make a really great product. And so that's how IBF started, and this is why how I got to where I am.
Awesome. Yeah, that's so true about what you say too, because chefs are creative people and they tend to their work is art. And oftentimes the art and the business don't talk to one another, or it's difficult to talk to one another. And so having somebody like yourself who understands both sides of that equation, help them navigate that process is so beneficial. And you've also been recognized by a lot of large outlets, National Geographic, Bon Appetit, James Beard Foundation, for the work that you've done. What does that kind of recognition mean to you? And does it change how you show up in the work that you do?
Mm. That's a really great question. For me, it's all about those, like, being recognized in that way. For me, it's about recognizing the work, right? Like, it's not me in particular. For example, like with National Geographic, that was about the work that I was doing with an organization called Make Food Not Waste. And that nonprofit was really, it's an environmental organization that is, trying to reduce the effects of climate change through reducing food waste. And some of the work I was doing with Make Food Not Waste was about, okay, was starting their upcycling kitchens. And if we have all of this food that's going into landfills, right? But we have a very large food insecurity rate. Food insecurity rate in Detroit was over 80%.
Whoa.
And so it was this novel idea of instead of food going into landfills, why can't we take that and feed people that are food insecure? And so, getting like recognized for that work, it was more so like all if the beauty of that is the eyes going towards the work so that people can see like what people are doing to maybe they can inspire them to start a similar organization in their city or their state. Maybe it's to get more funding to be able to support the work of the organization. So like all of that recognition is really all about like how can I utilize my platform to put more eyes on the work and or put more eyes on the entrepreneurs, right, that are underserved or that need further support.
Yep, absolutely. And I want to talk about that a little deeper because your work centers around these under-resourced and minority-owned food businesses specifically. Why does that focus matter and what changes when you are developing programs intentionally built around equity?
Yeah. So, you know, entrepreneurship it's a beautiful thing. It's very rewarding, and it also can be very lonely. It can also be very stressful. And a lot of times we have people that are entering into entrepreneurship out of need. It may be because their hours were cut at work and they need to find another way to bring income into their household. It could be because they were laid off. It could be because of unexpected bills, whether it's medical bills or their car went down. So a lot of times it is out of need. And so, when people are in survival mode, they make decisions differently, right? They don't make decisions in the same way because they're making decisions based on an immediate need. And so when you have people that are in survival mode, you need to understand what is influencing their decisions, why they're, making the decisions that they are or doing the things that they are, so that you can help them in the way that they need help instead of what you assume or what your experience is saying that they need help, right? So, they're, people that want to do better, that they want to start to create generational wealth, or they just may want to be able to put their kids through college without their son or daughter getting out of college with a bunch of debt. Like it may just be, having been able to provide stable transportation to and from school. It doesn't necessarily mean that they want to become a billion-dollar business, but it is when you have those that are under-resourced, how can we provide those resources that can really turn the tide for them,
Mhm.
and get them out of survival mode and into actually thriving? So, when you're showing up for those that are under-resourced, it's so important to understand them, to understand what it is that they are up against, so that you're not just going, I have this class, right? Like I have this program, I have this workshop. Okay, that's great. But is it accessible to them? And accessible in how much it costs, accessible in where it's located, accessible in language, accessible in is there childcare that is needed, accessible in the time of day or the day of the week that you're having that. So it's showing up like asking those questions even when it comes to a program, a workshop, a class, any resources that's available, how am I getting it to the people that I want to serve to ensure that it is equitable and it's not just, I'm not just checking off a box to say, I offered it though.
Mhm.
But, you know, other people that you're really trying to help, or is it going to be accessible to them?
Yeah, absolutely. It's about meeting people where they are and understanding the needs of your community and the challenges of your community. And that takes a lot of work, but that's the work that makes it impactful. And I want to, like, you said people fall back on food as a business when they don't know what else to do. A lot of people know how to cook. Most
Mhm.
everybody has that family recipe that
Yep.
everyone tells them, you should sell this, you should make it,
Yep.
can it, whatever.
Absolutely.
And so there's this narrative that food is an equalizer and anybody can start a food business and it's easy. You just cook your thing and put it on a shelf, go to the farmer's market, you'll
Mhm.
be great. How true is that? Where does it fall short? And what does it take to build real trust with entrepreneurs who have historically had good reason to be skeptical of institutions and support
Yeah.
systems?
No, that's a great question. We do hear that a lot, right? That food not only is it an equalizer, and it can bring people together. Food is great at being able to bring people together, gapping or bridging a gap, bridging a gap between cultures, and be it can be a great equalizer. And the thing is, though, we know that, and again, there is, and we've said it, and we've been saying this for years, is that I would let me say we've heard for years that food, there's a low barrier to entry, right, in starting a food business. There's the lower barrier to entry into getting into starting a food business than into, something else, right? You can go to the store, buy a 40-pound box of chicken wings for, $50 and turn that into $200, right? Like you said, everybody knows how to cook, or able to quickly and maybe even easily turn something into cash. And so there is a lower barrier to entry into cooking, into being able to sell like what you've cooked or baked to make money for your household. But there is a difference between this being something for a couple extra bucks, this being a hobby, and to having a real sustainable food business. And I think that's where it falls short. We romanticize the idea of having a food business, and not just starting one, but having one that is set up for growth and for sustainability. And I think that's where people get tripped up. Because, I've said this lately that yes, there's a low barrier to entry, but there's also a lower barrier to exit as well. Because it's not nearly as easy as we've made it, as we've made it seem. And again, if this is for a couple extra dollars, is this as a hobby? That's one thing. But when you are saying, I'm going to put my job, my income, my guaranteed income, and this business is going to then be able to provide not only the revenue and the profit for my business, but then also provide income, replace that income that I was bringing in my household, that is completely different situation. And having making sure that people understand what that is, and providing those resources so that they do have a strong foundation in order to make that a reality, and a sustainable reality, is completely different. So I do think that is where we have fallen short in that conversation, and people understanding that they're still, I mean, it is food, as we're seeing with inflation, cost of everything is rising, not just food costs, but then even labor costs are rising. And so those profit margins are getting tighter and tighter. And they were all already very, very tight, right? Like, historically restaurants were averaging what, 10% profit. Now it's about 5 to 7% that restaurants are seeing, so that already very slim profit margin is only getting slimmer. And so we need to have those real conversations, and not to scare someone, not to say, I don't think this is a good idea, but just to make sure that they understand the realities of what it is to have a business. And particularly a business that, if you are want to make sure that you are providing good jobs for people in your community, but also if that's gonna replace your household income, then it's
Mhm.
really important to really understand what it is that you are up against. in having a food business. The second part of your question, um, you asked about, I'm sorry, repeat what it was
Yeah,
you asked about.
building trust with
Mm,
entrepreneurs who have historically have been, you know,
mhm,
systematically discriminated against
yes.
in within this system.
So that is, I think we underestimate how important it really is to build that trust and how long sometimes that may take and how much we need to pour into building those relationships. It takes honesty. It also takes showing up. It takes it takes a level of even telling them that I don't know something, right? If you can't be honest, you have to be vulnerable in the same way that you're asking them to be vulnerable. Because their business, that's very personal to them. It's theirs. And some people say, well, it's business, it's not the same. No, it is their business that they're building. So it is very personal, just like my business is very personal to me. And so you're asking someone to be very vulnerable in them saying what it is that they need or having conversations about where they feel like maybe they're falling short. Because entrepreneurship, there is also a lot of people have imposter syndrome, right?
Mhm.
They're lacking this confidence because this is something that they haven't done before. And it's lonely because they may not have a lot of other people that are entrepreneurs around them that can, that they can kind of talk to figure things out. So there's, confidence issues as it relates to that because they're in uncharted territory. It takes time and it takes patience, and that's one of the things that it's really important to the work that I'm doing here is to take the time to really build those relationships so that they can start to trust me because they're not going to open up and be able to tell me what it is that they really need if that trust is not there. It's just not. And we can have some real conversations about them saying that they need this, but then really getting to the bottom of where the kind of the root of the issue really is.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's such a good point and so important and ties back to what you were saying before about, building that sustainable business and if especially if you're leaving your job and going back to shared kitchens, being able to be that operator to sit down with somebody and say, this might not be the best business model, or what would it look like if you pivoted this way? And
Mhm.
having that not just transactional relationship of you're paying me rent to use my kitchen,
Right.
but I want to see you succeed
Mhm.
and I'm here to be an advocate for you and to help you succeed. And so a lot of your other work, you advocate a lot for mental health in the hospitality industry and fair wages and we've mentioned food security. And all of that really creates a cohesive picture of what food can do and what entrepreneurship means. When we're talking about shared kitchens, how can operators be better advocates for their entrepreneurs in those areas as well and getting them to start thinking forward about hiring people and paying them fair wages and well how do they afford that because everything's going up and
Right.
bringing this and folding every all of this into the work.
Yeah. That's I feel like that is the role of like, a shared kitchen operator, right? I mean, I know that we all go into this for different reasons. But from the shared kitchen operators, particularly those that I've met from the summit, the Food Corridor Summit, from all over the country, really all over the world, is that most of them go into it because they saw a need, right? They
Mhm.
saw a need and there was a gap in the ecosystem and they were like, I want to fill this need. It wasn't about, oh, I'm going to be able to make all this money by starting this shared kitchen. It was, they knew that there was a need somewhere in their communities that could be filled through shared kitchen. So their heart is already there in their understanding of what it is that food entrepreneurs or someone that wants to start a food business needs. And so I think that this advocacy for them is a part of literally just a part of what we do. It's once we're able to gain that trust with that operator, with those food businesses and those entrepreneurs, it's listening to understanding what it is they need. That is one of the main things that, as a share kitchen operator manager, is that I spend a lot of time listening. Um, like that's one of the I hate to say easiest ways to kind of build trust is just to listen. I am not, every time someone comes to me, whether it's an issue or they're just venting or they just, right, it's not because I'm offering a solution. It's just that they just need to get out, whatever it is that they need to get out. And then when we have scheduled meetings, then we can talk more in depth about their revenue goals, their growth, like all of those things. But all of this is more information as to what do I need to be advocating for them? Like what they are if you listen, they will literally tell you exactly the things that they need. We
Mhm.
just have to be open to listening instead of always thinking that we have to come up with a solution. Like they're asking for us to come up with a solution. Not in the immediate, right?
Yeah.
More so in the, okay, I'm seeing this pattern across these entrepreneurs that I'm talking to. And then how can we solve that? How can we figure out that need? And that's really how like all of the programs that I do through Eastern Market has really come to be and through the incubator kitchen is because I listen to the business owners and entrepreneurs that licensed in my kitchen to what it was that they were needing. One of the things that we started offering was co-working hours. And they can come if they want, but it's where we have set times and set days where you can come and, I'll buy coffee and we have, printer available. We have all so you can just come and do admin work because, they were either doing it at home, but there were distractions, of course, at home, right? Whether it's kids or animals or just, other things they need to clean up. And so they were trying to figure out, okay, like where do I go to I just need some emails done. Sometimes it's also just being in a space with other entrepreneurs where they may not see them because, they're booked in the kitchen at this time and another entrepreneur is booked at a different day and time. So they may not have the opportunity to even engage with some of those other entrepreneurs that are in the kitchen. So because again, just listening to them again, just kind of side comments of, oh man, I need to figure out where I'm gonna go and get some emails sent, and I had to go to this coffee shop. And I'm like, wait, I've heard this a couple times now. Let's just start hosting co-working hours so that they
Yeah.
can also then like really build community with the other entrepreneurs that are in this kitchen that again they may not see, but a chance to have somewhere where they know that they can go and they can get their admin stuff done. They can send out emails. They can ask me questions. Because we do have scheduled times where that happens, but there are some things that just might come up where they go, you know what, Chef E, I got a question. Or, hey, I was having this. We'll also, at those same co-working days, we might even host other, kind of experts or technical service providers. So like right before tax season, we had a tax accountant come in. And again, she was just there in case we had questions as we were preparing for filing the business taxes, but she was just there.
Mhm.
Just so someone can go, "Oh, I actually do have a question. Oh my God, this is something new for me this year. Oh, what has changed?" And that
Yep.
research day, they don't have to pay, for a couple hours to consult with a taxer. They can just come to the kitchen, ask whatever question they need, and then that's it. Because sometimes they just need a couple questions. They don't need a 2-hour class or they don't need a 6-week cohort. But for
Mhm.
those that do need those things, we offer those things as well. So the best way that we can be advocates is to listen, but then also what they're telling us is to go back to the ecosystem. Detroit, we have a very robust small business ecosystem here, and I'm very grateful for that. So when I am seeing patterns and the entrepreneurs that I'm serving are telling me, some of the same things, I can go back to that ecosystem. If it's not something that I am able to provide, I can go to the ecosystem and see where that it is available and make sure that I get that information back to my entrepreneurs that need those resources. Because they're trying to build and grow a business. They may not have the capacity to go out there and find all of the things that they may need. But that is my role to do that, to make sure that I am that resource. If it's not me specifically, then knowing where to go and get it.
Mhm. God, just so smart. You build for them, right? You don't make assumptions and build things that you think people need or create programs that you hope they'll utilize. It's like you said, listening and then responding
Yeah.
and providing solutions. And if you don't have the solution, finding it somewhere else in the community that has the solution.
Yep, and I know that even, we're all up against, funding cuts and, making sure like things are funded. So even something like co-working, like that doesn't cost me anything
Mhm.
else to be able to just provide a space for them to be able to meet. So trying to find things that, again, I know we're all up against that. Trying to find things that's available that isn't going to cost them anything and isn't going to cost you anything or little, very little. There are ways that we can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to get into a little bit more about Eastern Market and Shed 5 Incubator for people who don't know or aren't familiar with those programs. Kind of set the scene for us. What is it and why does it matter as a home base for entrepreneurs in Detroit?
Yeah. So Eastern Market is the largest open air farmers market in the country. It is also one of the oldest. And so Eastern Market, the Saturday market is year round. The Saturday market, you would see, upwards of 250 vendors. That includes, farmers, food businesses, and other types of vendors. And a Saturday market will see up to 40,000 people every Saturday. The Eastern market also has the Tuesday market, which is seasonal, that runs during the summer, as well as the Sunday market. And, they're smaller markets. And that's where, if someone is entering into becoming a market, Eastern market vendor, they might enter into a Tuesday or a Sunday market first because handling being, in front of 40,000 people, you need to grow into that. But it's an amazing opportunity. And so it's a great opportunity. The market, that being such, um, everyone knows about Easter Market. Everybody wants to be here at Easter Market. Like I said, seeing 40,000 people every Saturday, it's historic. And the opportunity the greatest opportunity we could really give anyone that has a business is the opportunity for them to sell their product, to build their revenue, to get their product in front of people, whether that's to get feedback, because we know they're going to give you feedback whether you ask for it or not. Feedback, what is available in the market, what's around, and to be able to turn your inventory into cash.
Mhm.
That is a really, that's what when we say we provide opportunities for entrepreneurs, like that is the greatest thing that we could do is provide them an opportunity to build their revenues. And so that is, the really beautiful thing about Easter Market and the markets. There's an entire district and there's so much that Easter Market not only provides for entrepreneurs, but for communities in Southeast Michigan and farmers across the region as well. But Easter Market, again, there's such a great opportunity in being able to get your products in front of customers and potential customers every week, day in and day out. And it's also okay. How do we prepare them for that opportunity? Not just say, well, hey, you can be a vendor at the market, but to get them ready for that. And
Mhm.
so the incubator kitchen like opened in 2014 to be able to help incubate businesses. So people that were okay, I got this my grandmother's salsa recipe that I wanna, try to start selling and getting in people's hands and in their mouths and in grocery store shelves. How do I get that started to be able to then get to a Saturday market? And having an incubator kitchen where you can do that it's again, it's ideal to that equity piece that we were talking about, that
Mhm.
accessibility piece that we were talking about, and providing a resource to help someone get prepared for an opportunity like a farmer's market or a Saturday market. Eastern Market has the incubator kitchen. I in the business of food manages that space and then provides the wraparound services for not only those tenants, but those in Detroit that are looking to start or grow a food business. And then Eastern Market also has an accelerator space, 6 suites for food businesses, 2 suites for retail, where, if you grow out of the incubator space or have grown out of being an incubator business, there's about 800 square foot suites where now you have a larger space to be able to grow your business. And then, of course, we also have relationships with co-packers and co-manufacturers and for those that, again, continue to grow and scale their business. So Eastern Market has really made a huge investment
Mhm.
in both the farming and food ecosystem and businesses here in Metro Detroit. Because again, it's having that opportunity to sell your products is amazing and invaluable. But me making sure that we have the infrastructure and the system set up to prepare them for those opportunities
Mhm.
is really where they've made a huge investment.
Yeah, that's so amazing. You all have everything right there, essentially like vertically integrated into the concept. to help scale and grow. And so it we typically see, with growing food businesses and talk to me on this if you see this too in your work is there's a point when someone is growing where they've been successful at markets, they've gotten attention from a couple of small, local retail shops, and they're ready to get into co-packing and distribution, but not necessarily large scale, kind of in that small mid-size area where there tends to be a lack of support.
Yeah.
And there tends to be some very crucial business decisions to
Mhm.
be made that can take them one of two ways. What do you see in those businesses that help them succeed more versus staying stuck in that smaller scale
Yeah.
growth?
That's a really interesting question because that's a question that, us that's doing this work have asked ourselves as well. What is that thing
Mhm.
that kind of separates? One that I've noticed is curiosity, just pure curiosity and knowing that there's a lot that I may not know, but curious as to making sure that I understand um the decisions that I'm making, right? And like what influences those. Curiosity is huge. Of course, like making sure that the resources and the accessibility and the funding, like all of those are again very extremely important. But I think being curious is like one of those things that it's not a tangible, right? It's not like, oh, this degree, right? This certificate, this, like amount of certain amount of money or, capital. It's like, yes, all of those things are important. But I would definitely say one of the things that it's has separated that is pure curiosity and yeah, I would say that's one of the hugest, like the biggest deciding factors I have, and not just curious, but there's also another thing that those that have been underserved and under resourced, a lot of times they don't have the ability to do, and that is the ability to fail. We a lot of times, many times, that those that are under resourced aren't they don't have an option. They can't, and so when you don't have the ability to fail, that means you can't take risk. Even if they are calculated, you just don't have that option to be able to take some of those risks that will allow you to get to that next level of business.
Mm.
And so past curiosity, I would even say the ability to fail. And that's why for me, it is so important to be able to provide as many resources as I possibly can to even the playing field as much as possible so that they can get those opportunities where they may not have before because they're so under-resourced.
Yeah. And we often say shared kitchens remove some of those barriers to entry and provide a safe space to fail. But to your point, some people can't even it is a big risk to even
It
fail
is.
in a shared kitchen.
Yes.
That is your livelihood. And so what are like the top 3 areas that shared kitchen operators can best help support their entrepreneurs in to help mitigate some of that risk?
And to your point, you're right. They can, share kitchens is designed to provide them with that access and make it so they don't have as many barriers to succeeding. And the thing is that can it's a fine line between like removing barriers and then like being a crutch.
Mhm.
Right, because that next level of success, whether they're going into an accelerator or a co-packer or co-manufacturer, even their own space, now that's a different level of access. That's a different level of now, like, that they'll need, and so understanding, like, again, it's a very fine line, but not being a crutch, being that support, right? And being honest and having those honest and real conversations with them is like number one. There are some uncomfortable conversations that you have to have, right?
Yeah.
But also those very real and uncomfortable conversations might say, might save them from making $100,000 mistake, right?
Mhm.
That they may not be able to get from under. I had someone recently come to me because another service that we offer through In the Business of Food that is not just for our tenants, but any food entrepreneur in the space is they can schedule free 30-minute sessions with anybody on the team. Because I am not an expert in everything food, right? Like not absolutely not. I have a very specific lane, and so we have a team of experts that have expertise in different areas. So you can come to me for like licensing and um, food safety and operations and things like that. And we have someone else that is very hospitality and restaurant, have expertise in those areas. Our distribution, manufacturing. We even have a bilingual expert because we have also have a very large Spanish speaking population here in Detroit. We have a social media manager and content creator. We have a mental health clinician. So anybody can schedule free sessions with that. And so that is another way that we're not only supporting the tenants in the kitchen, but we're really supporting food entrepreneurs at every stage. And so
Mhm.
someone had recently scheduled a session with me. And this is someone that had been through a couple of classes and workshops. She was saying how she was feeling like she needed to pause her business. And, she was just at the point where, she wasn't growing her revenues and she really, she was looking at, her income and that she was going to need to go and get a job and that she was going to have to pause her business. And my response to her was, congratulations. And she was like, "For what?" Like, she was like, "I feel like crying and blah, blah." And I said, "And you can do all of those things. If you need to
Mhm.
cry, absolutely, as you should." I said, "But, like, I know that is not how you wanted your business to go or what you wanted to say at this stage in your business, but, like, that is also success,
Mhm.
right? When you have laid it all out on the table and you have looked at the numbers and you've looked at the data and analyzed that data and realized this is not you're just not gonna keep I just gotta keep pushing through. I just gotta keep pushing through. And there's like, whether it's going into debt or not being able to take care of your household bills, like whatever it is, stressing yourself out. When the answer is, I'm just gonna pause, I'm gonna get myself back together. And then when I'm able to do that, I'm gonna go back to this. That's success.
Yeah, absolutely.
Was that is not what she wanted to hear. And it wasn't comfortable for me to even have to, like have but to make sure that she knew, one, she supported in whatever decision. But yeah, that is success. Don't I know it's hard to feel like, well, I feel like a failure. You didn't. You're not a failure at all. You started a business, you were trying to grow it. You were in business for however many years. And now you're just pausing because again, you're looking at increased cost of ingredients, increased cost of labor, and what is happening in our economy right now. And you're like, this is not a good decision for me to continue to do this. No, that's success.
Yeah. That takes just as much guts as starting a business, is
Absolutely.
recognizing when it's time to cut your losses.
Yeah.
Maybe even more so
Yeah.
because it's a very difficult decision and it is not a failure. And you
Yeah.
learn a ton from it. And if you come back, you often come back
Yeah.
stronger and
Exactly.
you know where you misstep.
Exactly. Especially when again, you're not making decisions out of survival. You're not making
Mhm.
decisions from because you're stressed out. And you haven't or you're making decisions and you have decision fatigue. So just because you're so exhausted from making decisions that you're making the wrong ones. I mean,
Right.
so yeah, so being able to recoup to just go, okay, let me just pause for a second. I need to get it together. I need to stabilize first. I need to, and figure out like is this even something that I wanna continue to do? We don't like to call it this, but there is ego. It happens to
Yeah.
all of us, and honestly, you have to have a certain amount of ego to become an entrepreneur, right? And to be a business owner. And so sometimes we get so caught up in, like, this, like, "I know I said I was gonna have this business. I told such and such I was gonna make $1,000,000. And it's like that understandably, I've done the same thing. But at some point, being able to step back and go, "Wait a minute. Hold on. Is this making sense for me
Yeah.
anymore? And is this what I want for me?"
Right.
And being able to say, no, this is not what I want right now. And I need to go do something else. Yeah, that is totally okay. So yeah, she was very shocked with me telling her congratulations. But I was like, honey, that that's a decision and that's fine. And I'm grateful. I'm glad that you were able to make that decision for yourself.
Absolutely. You can't force a business to be successful. You can't force it. What's one thing you wish more shared kitchen operators understood about the entrepreneurs producing in their space?
Oh, that it is easy for us to one, to take the humanity out of it sometimes because we get so caught up in the business of it all. Whether
Mhm,
it's the shared kitchen itself, like making enough money for us to continue, for it to continue to help these entrepreneurs to, just like trying to cookie cutter, like everything, like, okay, taking this one entrepreneur, all right, if this is the steps that they took, then this is the step this next one is gonna take, right?
mhm,
And there is a level of course, systems, creating those systems, working those systems, but everyone is different. Where they start is different. Where what success looks like to them is going to be different. And so we really want to make sure that we are continuing to like humanize them, their experiences, also that their experiences are important and to make sure that they understand that I am not, my role as more like a business coach in this space with these tenants, because of course there's operations, there's cleanliness, making sure that, the tenants are keeping their food safe, their responsibility in keeping others safe. Like all of those things are important. And, we make sure that, someone on the team is taking care of that, the actual business of like operating a shared kitchen. But my role is really more of a business coach. And really, how I see that is I'm really more like I'm an accountability partner at the end of the day, right? We walk through, we strategize on growing their revenues according to what they want, what their marker of success is. They might just want to, be able to make enough revenue every month to again put their kids through college, right? They may not
mhm,
want to become a $1 million business, and that's okay. We can't force them into what we feel like they should be, or what they, "Oh, you but this product, but don't you want it on a grocery store shelf? Don't you want it being sold in?" They may not want that, and that
mhm,
is okay. And we have to go, "You know what? This is what you want. I'm here to help you get there. Not where I want you to be, well, where you want you to be."
mhm.
And so that is, I think, one of the things that we have to remember. And so, like, when it comes to helping them with wherever they want to be and whatever their marker of success is, it is okay. How do I help you get there? So, if you're saying, in order for me to be able to afford to send my kid, to college, that means that's going to produce this much revenue every year. I'm going to have to produce this much revenue, which means this much revenue a month. Okay. How do we get there? And then I'm that person that's gonna hold you accountable to that. Hey, what did we do last month? And okay, if we didn't meet this mark, how do we meet it next month? How are we strategizing for the next quarter to make sure that we're not behind the eight ball and we're taking advantage of these opportunities to be able to get to where you want your business to be? That's all.
Yep,
I'm just an accountability partner at the end of the day.
I love that. We're gonna change all of the operators' names to accountability partner. Now everyone's new title. So, one last question for you, Chefy. What's next for in the business of food and Eastern market? What are you building towards?
Oh my God. One of the things when it relates to, this small business ecosystem, this nonprofit ecosystem is, numbers and big numbers, right? Like impact numbers. And we know how important that is. We know how important it is, particularly for funding. And whether that's having, 50 people come through a cohort or 100 people attend this workshop or, all these businesses getting licensed or having a number of people come through the kitchen. For me, I want to just get deeper instead of getting wider. And again, we have programs for people that want to start because that's where the numbers really are. Those that want to start and then have started and then want to grow. When it comes to really scaling, that's where the numbers start to get smaller. I want to be able to get deeper with whether that's the tenants that I serve in the kitchen or other entrepreneurs that come through some of those cohorts. Is to really deepen that level of deepen that trust, deepen the helping them really grow. Because again, they can come through a licensing 101 to figure out how to get licensed, right? But then once they do that, then what, right? They're open or they're in a shared kitchen. And now they're kind of by themselves, like on this hamster wheel of like, okay, what's next? I think what we really want to focus on is really getting deeper with these entrepreneurs to really get to Not just it could also be where they their marker of success is what it is because they didn't think that it could be any bigger. They didn't
Ah,
dream for it to be any bigger. So all they could see was, well, if I can just do $50,000 in revenue a year, I'm good. But not even understanding that 100,000 is that can happen too.
mhm.
And so being able to, again, if that's what they want, no problem. But if they don't want more because they didn't think that it was possible, then let's get deeper so that we can get you there and you can actually actualize that I could do more. I just didn't know that it was possible. So that's where we want to go.
That's beautiful. Yes. Love it. Thank you so much for joining us, Sheffy. Where can people find you and follow the work that you're doing?
Yes, the name of the business is In the Business of Food because that's what we do. I told someone that the other day. They was like, "Well, that's simple enough." I'm like, "What we do."
It's good marketing.
Yeah. So you can find us at In the Business of Food, which is also IBF Detroit. On Instagram, it is one word, In the Business. We try to keep it very simple. That is what we do. You can also find us at LinkedIn at In the Business of Food as well.
Awesome. And we'll put all of those in the show notes, description, whatever it's called. Yep. Thank you again, Sheffy. It was so nice talking with you and connecting.
Yes, anytime. Thank you guys for having me.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Whisked. A big thank you to Chef E from In the Business of Food and Eastern Market. You can learn more about the Food Corridor and how our app supports shared kitchen management at thefoodcorridor.com. Explore our sister site, The Kitchen Door, to connect with qualified food business leads in your area. For more learning opportunities and tools, be sure to check out kitchenedu.com, our educational hub designed specifically for shared kitchen operators and the businesses they support. Until next time, thanks for being part of the shared kitchen community.